What's up, Zox fam? We're back with some more Etheria Restart. Now, I want to get into some of my top prospects for Lattice investment because I know we're all waiting. I know personally I'm waiting, stacking up perfect lattices. And there is a possibility that whatever new things come out may not be of interest or even really required for me to be aiming for on my account. And it also may even just be out of the scope of the playstyle preference that I have. So I was just taking a look at some of the things that I have on my account, and I wanted to kind of talk about some of those prospect choices for Lattice investment because this may also give you some insight. Now, I am going to be staying away from like some of the obvious ones like Lilium or Yelly, just because, again, if you're building a DPS, they need to typically be 555. And there's definitely some variances there, but overall, they need tons of Lattice investment. And I think that that's kind of a no-brainer. But getting into the very, very first choice here, or first unit I really have been looking at more recently, has been my Heinrich, right? The reason why I think Heinrich, again, like if we're just talking about like different areas that he opens up in the PvE side and PvP, this guy is actually like kind of a monster. Like he has so much viability in my opinion, like just from his ability to be able to strip, but then he also can deal a fair amount of damage from all his skills. And because he has a passive that makes every single skill he does basically buff strip, that ends up being such a huge quality for him, right? Now, of course, when we're talking about like Lattice investment, definitely looking at that skill 3 for the crit damage boost on the level 3. And then of course, for the level 4 and the level 5, I mean, really honestly are huge as well. But the crit damage boost just means obviously doing more damage, which is something like, why would I want to do more damage with him? And then the other thing is too, is being able to increase the duration of block. That could be like really huge, like really messing with like different team setups and stuff like that, especially as you're debuff stacking and stuff, preventing them from being able to like basically give themselves like benefits basically from their buffs. So having that duration increase is just going to make it much easier for you to kind of get your job done. And then of course the cooldown reduction is huge because a lot of the things that's at 5 turn, like in some cases, like depending on how fast the fight is, then you don't really care too much about that. But if the fight's a little bit longer, you want those cooldowns reduced as quickly as possible. So having that, I think, is going to be pretty huge. Now, the skill 1 is also something that really intrigued me with this character, with the increased chances of dispelling buffs to 50%. And this is affecting the passive, right? So Reaper's Gaze has, each time Heinrich attacks, has a 40% chance at base to dispel 1 buff from the target, and the target has no dispellable buffs, has an 80% chance to inflict 1 stack of last word. And so with that, you then are going to be able to increase the chance of inflicting the block's buffs to 45% chance. And then also with the level 5, it will increase the duration of last word to 3 turns, which the last word is going to be the damage buff. So that's, or debuff. So that's something that I like, well, I absolutely want to make sure I'm taking huge advantage of that because that's going to basically give me more windows, whether it's me doing PvE or doing PvP, to basically get rid of my opponent, right? So it just gives more duration value or value to the skill every single time you use it. So when I was really looking at Heinrich, I feel like he's definitely really strong, and definitely a unit on my account that, like, if I put Lattice into him, he's definitely going to open up a lot of different things for me and just make things more seamless, I would say, right? So yeah, definitely a character I was looking at. Now, my next character I was actually considering was actually DokiDoki, right? So I know these are 2 LDs, but it's like very much so worth talking about because I think when it comes to like characters outside of Lily, a lot of people are like kind of finicky with like the thought process of dumping lattices into like a Doki or even a Heinrich. And I feel like with DokiDoki, like she actually with the investment can be just on par with Lily, in my opinion. Like I actually think she's like arguably one of the best SSRs in the game. And when we really get down to it, it's about the investment. Like if you actually have the ability to let's say 515 her or even 555 her, she was going to become a completely different character. And I only know this because I've actually tested her at max before. So that's the thing. The only thing that changed was the fact of how many purifications she could have, because before her purification ability was like by far like not even comparable to any other character. Like she was the best purifier in the game. Like undoubtedly nobody competed. So even with that though, being able to have the chance to increase the number of backup stacks gained, being able to increase the number of turn meter pushes that you get to 8 times, then also having the cooldown reduced to 4 turns. Like there's a lot of stock value that comes from this, right? So that turn meter effect going up, the number of times that you can do it, cooldown reduction, backup stacks, like her skill 3 is nuts when it's invested, if you really think about it. So that's something that I think is like super like game changing when we're talking about how this unit's value works. Even if we're looking at the skill 1, increasing the chance to 100% of gaining backup is huge, right? Being able to purify 3 debuffs is huge. So backup now being able to purify 3 debuffs is what's going to make her absolutely broken, right? And when we're talking about like a super heavy meta where like CC is happening and making her go quicker so that you can try to get that that buff off, so you can actually, get rid of those debuffs is huge, right? Because backup, so before another allied Animus affected by a debuff takes action, consumes 1 stack to purify 2 debuffs from the unit and applies 1 stack of data stream. So that ends up being like super, super crazy. Like I'm telling you, like if you really want to see DokiDoki get crazy, I really think that skill 1 is going to be super huge in conjunction to the skill 3. And then of course the skill 2, definitely not something you have to rush in priority in my opinion. I definitely think it does help, right? So increasing the limit of the data stream stacks to 10 instead of 8, being able to increase that damage boost to 2.5 and 2.5 damage and 2.5 speed respectively. I think that's actually pretty huge because over in longer form fights that adds up. So that ends up being like kind of nice there. And then you can get the data stream stacks to 12, and then increasing the number of skill cooldown reductions to 5 times instead of 4 gives you like extra stock there. So like this is definitely like, as much as people like, I mean, granted, I love using Doki. She can work out of the box, but this is a 5 out of 5 unit. It is, right? Like she's a 5/5/5 unit, period. Like she really is. So I feel like this is a unit that I'm also kind of considering because I feel like she's definitely going to heavily affect how I'm able to counteract certain things in PvP. But I also feel like in certain PvE stuff, she's definitely really good. And like I said, in comparison to Lily, where Lily's investment is a little lighter, and so she's easier to gateway into a lot of stuff, I feel like her stock is just as high. It just requires more investment. So that's just kind of that. Between those two right off rip, Doki, Heinrich, definitely 2 of the ones that I was like kind of looking at. I was like, dude, I got to get some more investment in them. Now, one of the very next prospects I'm really looking at here, and I think that it's definitely been like pretty clear on her overall value, but I really want to see how much more I can actually push this character because I do like using her quite a bit. It's actually Freya, right? So Freya, I think out of the box, we've all acknowledged is just like really, really busted. But one of the things I've really been like wanting to really do with her is actually invest Lattice into her. And I've seen a few people that have had the Lattice in her, but being able to increase with the skill 3, your Nightmare to 30% chance of inflicting it, then also being able to increase the damage and the healing effect of Nightmare to 15%. Like those percentages might not seem like much, but like when you really do start to add like those things up in like fights, that does make a big difference, right? Like how much sustain you're going to have versus how much damage you actually deal. That's going to affect like if you're using her in like PvE stuff for like your one shots, like you're doing more damage, you're restoring more HP. Of course, with the skill 2, increased chance of being able to apply the Dream Weave. And that's something that I think that's going to allow my Freya to just be more consistent at making sure debuffs don't stick, because it says here that you basically can grant Dream Weave to all allies with the defense up for 2 turns with a 35% chance to apply an additional stack of Dream Weave. So remember that when inflicted with a debuff, it consumes 1 stack to purify it, and it can stack up to 3 times. So if I have an 80% chance of being able to get the additional, that means I'm basically almost guaranteeing that I'm going to always have 2 stacks, right? So I'll be able to much better deal with debuffing with her versus when we're just looking at it at the 35% chance, that is pretty low. And a lot of the times you're just going to have that 1, and that's going to be gone just off of 1 hit of like say like you're trying to counter an Obel, right? Obel's just going to hit into that 1 time and yeah, it's already gone, right? So like it's definitely something worth considering. I mean, he can kind of go crazy anyway because he stuns and dots, but it's just the point of having the extra layer, which can be a lot more helpful in other situations. Then of course with the skill 1, Skill one's actually pretty important too, because it increases the chances of applying Dreamweave and Nightmare to 60 and 30%. And then also the turn meter effect is going to go up at level 5. So I like, granted, it's only a percentage, but a percentage can definitely be something that can add up, because the thing is that that's something that is basically being affected by both debuffs and buffs, right? So if you look at the turn meter increase, when you gain a buff is 3%, but then when you reduce or when you do a debuff, it's a 3% increase or decrease, right? So the turn meter effects being provided by Dream Guide going up to 4% is going to affect buffing and debuffing. So that's something that I think that, like, again, when we're talking about like that long-term value and just the investment value, I think that that's going to be pretty high. So yeah, for one of my like first RGB choices, this is definitely a unit I've been looking at, and I'm like, dude, like I got to get that investment in her. So yeah, Freya's definitely on the list for me. I would definitely say another one that's actually sitting on the list right now is going to be Sukiomi. Sukiomi for me right now, I just got her, so I'm actually pretty excited to see what I can do with her. This is a character that does require some investment, and I feel like for what it's worth, when we talk about characters that are able to emulate anything remotely close to Lily, you have characters like Nell, you got Sukiomi. I feel like the thing is that those characters need more investment typically. Like Nell like really needs, I think, like her skill 2 and 3. And Suki definitely needs some investment as well. Like being able to have the skill 3 invested is huge. Taking that cooldown down, making sure that the turn meter effect is at 100% instead of 60%, so you can guarantee those turns. And then also the 35% push for herself, which is going to just make her rotate really well as well. Then of course the skill 2, which is where you're getting that additional damage, your increased chance of silencing, and then the cooldown, so it syncs. And that's one thing I like always talk about with certain characters is like when you have two skills at the same cooldown, a lot of the times you want to be able to have the ability to lower both because it will sync them, right? So that you're not having like any off weird windows where something isn't happening. Because the other thing is too is that this skill then reduces Animus shell skill cooldowns and all allies cooldowns by 1 turn, which I think is pretty massive. And then the skill 1 is actually going to be increasing the turn meter effect to 25% from 10% to the highest character with the, or to the character with the highest attack. So I feel like that's definitely like super high in value in my opinion. And I feel like when we're talking about a lot of content from doing Aurora to doing PvP, like I feel like that stock, even just in like things like Ethernet Rally or going through Ember Track, Sukiomi is definitely a character I think that has a lot of stock and gives a lot of value to an account. So this is another character that I'm looking at that like, okay, I might be on the verge of like considering dumping Lattices into her. And I don't think I'm going to regret it, because so far, the only unit that I don't think I really have any regrets right now. I don't think I do. I mean, the only one I'm not really using right now is probably my Messiah, which is like 4 Lattices I could have probably put into someone else. But he still does work really well in the PvP, so I could still use him for that. But yeah, I'm not really using him right now. So I feel like with these units, though, these would be like pretty solid units that I could actually consider dumping Lattices into and not really regretting it. I think another one that's like definitely on my radar, and I've been kind of like eyeing, but I just don't have the ability to do it right now because I know there's so many other things I want to do, is Fucci. Okay, so I think Fucci is another one I was like looking at. I feel like her value is like pretty nuts because of the increase to shield, turn meter push, the healing effect. Like everything basically gets boosted in her skill 3. Like it is like really, really insane. And Fucci out of the box is good. So Fucci with investment is just bonkers. The increased chance to trigger the Moonlight Veil to 100% from the 55% chance to 100% is like literally game changing, if we're just going to be honest. 3-turn cooldown is even like more insane. And then on top of that, the skill 1 with the Brassad being able to go up to 8%. That 2%, like I said, is just going to make a big difference. Like it doesn't seem like much, but with lowered cooldowns, the Moonlight Veil actively being active, like it is definitely going to be something you notice and you feel. And I feel like this is a character that I feel like, you know, in the current meta, I think Fucci would actually be a pretty solid investment for me. And even in just like certain content, like later down the line, when it's coming down to content that you got to deal with poisons and stuff like that, like she's a really good character in that type of stuff. So I've been liking her a lot for that. And I love her on Fortissimo. I cannot stress that enough. Like I love Fucci on Fortissimo. Like it is just like one of my favorite things to see pop off with all the shielding and the movement that she got going on. So definitely, a character that kind of emulates, not really exactly the same Freya, but kind of gives that vibe. And so, yeah, I really like those two characters. So those are, I would say, my 5 prospects I'm looking at on my account right now. Definitely honorable mentions. Klaus, for sure. I've already gone and done her skill 3. I might want to do a little bit more on her. I definitely will say, like, for PvP, Hoden is another one I'm really looking at. Skill 1. Definitely need that for sure. Considering doing Ho Yan for some PvP setups, I'm like actually working on a build for her right now. So that's just, some of my honorable mentions for right now. But I'm interested to know who you guys actually have on your radar for potential investments, depending on like what exactly ends up happening. Like I said, these are my prospects, so it's not guaranteed I'll do them anytime soon or even right now, but they are the units that I feel like would actually give my account more stock. And just make them much better. So yeah, guys, that's basically going to be that with this one. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Everyone, stay blessed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.